The first computer I ever used, I believe, was an Apple IIe. But I'm not quite sure. But it would have been at my elementary school. And the ones I used more at the time were Texas Instruments, the TI 99 4A, which was like a $99 computer, and it used a tape drive instead of floppy drives. I did not own a computer until I went to college because my parents, I've told this story many times, and I don't know where I'd be in life otherwise, but all my friends growing up in the 80s wanted to have computers, and a lot of my friends' parents did buy them computers, but they were resistant to it. They're like, you're not going to do anything on it except play games, and it's probably just going to sit in a closet and get dust. And my parents refused to buy me a computer on the grounds that if they did, I would never leave the house. And they were probably right. Uh, but it was
So
probably an Apple IIe was the first computer that I
that was the
used.
first one you used, but what would be the first one that was yours? This is my machine.
The first computer I owned was a Macintosh LC in 1991 when I started my freshman year at Drexel University. That was the LC stood for low cost, but it was not low cost. First time I can remember being infatuated with a computer, and no surprise, involved video games. But my mom's brother, my uncle Jack, had, I don't even know what the device is called. I guess you could look it up. But it was a predecessor to the Atari 2600 that literally only played Pong. And I think it was black and white, but when we went to my uncle's house, I could move a thing on the screen on his television. I'm twisting a dial and it's making this paddle move up and down the screen, and I'm playing a very fun game, but I'm making the picture on the TV behave to my input. And it just blew my mind. It more so than it would have if he had a video camera, which he didn't. But even seeing myself on the television wasn't anywhere near as interesting to me as being able to control a thing in a game on a screen. Um, and of course, me being born in 1973, no surprise, Pac-Man was a seminal
Mm.
uh, influence on my life. And I just remember as a kid, I wanted to play, but I was simultaneously, my brain was torn in two directions where I both wanted to just play Pac-Man with every quarter I could possibly get my hands on, but also figure out how in the world did this device work? How did this possibly work where me moving this stick could move this little yellow character on screen with absolute precision, responding to my commands? How does this work? And here I am at age 50. I'll go back to Pac-Man. I forget which conference it was, if it was Webstock or UL. I think it was a conference called UL in Ireland about 10 years ago, but I gave an entire talk about Pac-Man, and I could do
Mm.
it. And I've since thought I should redo that talk, because I think the brilliance of Pac-Man cannot be overstated. And one of the things, and I think it applies to all the things I write about at Daring Fireball in terms of user interface and usability, and the things that drive me to be more interested in the products and software from Apple than from other companies, is just user interface, human computer interaction, whatever you want to call it. But one of the things that's so easy to overlook, but is so utterly brilliant about Pac-Man, is that it's completely understandable by anybody just by looking at it for about 15 seconds. You can watch somebody play for 5 to 15 seconds and you understand everything about it. Oh, you're the little yellow guy. You have to eat the dots. Those are the bad guys. Don't touch them. But if you eat one of these four bigger dots, you gain temporary superpowers and are able to eat the bad guys because they change to blue and they make different sounds and they run away from you and get all the dots and then start all over again. And the extra little magic of Pac-Man that didn't have to be there, but I think really helped make it the worldwide phenomenal sensation that it was was the fact that there was a tunnel on the left and right where you could go off the side of the screen and appear on the other side of the screen. And it's so silly and so dumb. And anybody who knows how computers work knows that there's no there's no magic to it. It's not harder programming to have made that happen than to have had a maze where you can't do that. But it took Pac-Man to a realm that nothing in the physical world could ever do. It was teleportation, and you could do it. It was you. You're the little Pac-Man when you're playing Pac-Man. It's an avatar for you, and it felt like you, with this ghost on your tail about to eat you, you could shake the ghost by teleporting to the other side of the screen by going off the side. And the fact that you could, and there were so many, hundreds and hundreds, thousands, I guess, of coin-op arcade games that, were around the Pac-Man era. It was a golden age of loving an arcade. But many of the games were complicated, and you'd kind of have to, like, there would be instructions printed on the console, and you'd put a quarter in, and you'd be like, I don't even know what happened. I don't know why did I die? Why am I out? Pac-Man wasn't like that, and yet it was rich enough that even with the simplicity of the concept, kept people playing until they ran out of quarters. The first time I went online would be sometime when I was in college. So my college years at Drexel University from 91 to 96 spanned there was no internet in the dorms when I got there, to everybody had email when I graduated. And because I was a computer science major, I got email right away, because we had, you do all your homework by logging into a Unix system. And so the computer science majors and people in other computer related majors got email before the other students did. Online, meaning the internet, would be some point my freshman year of college at Drexel, logging in via a terminal interface to a Unix machine, and getting email. And what was it? There was Gopher, which was sort of a predecessor to the web, where you could read stuff, and you could chat with other people live.
It wasn't the web. I always have to yell at people about that. It wasn't the web. It was different than the web. But
right.
Yeah.
And of course, Usenet, which was the first sort of community where it was the first worldwide sort of, I don't know what you call it, service app protocol, where people of a similar esoteric interest could all group together and argue about which was better, Mac or Windows. Because that's the joke, was no matter what the group was, it could be a group about photography, or it could be a group about movies, or a group about music. Everything devolved into a thread about which was better, Mac or Windows.
What do you think about that in terms of, like, that's always the thing of, like, what's the law where the thing you can do to make anything happen on the internet is say something wrong? Whose law is that? It's not Godwin's law. There's a different law.
No.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's a cartoon, right? It might be an XK.
Right. Just put something on the internet that is wrong, and everyone will yell at you about it, and that is what we're doing. But, like, even in those days of, like, the Usenet stuff, because I'm about your age too, like that was there. Like, if you just were like, I'm gonna say something dumb, people will line up to tell you how dumb you are.
Absolutely. And I was in line to tell people how dumb they were. Oh, I actually remember this. I believe the title was just Gus. It was a Don Knotts movie about a Gus the Kicking Mule, and it was about an immigrant who came over from some fictional country in Eastern Europe with a mule who could kick a football ridiculous distances, and became the place kicker for the football team that Don Knotts coached. So I think what was the movie then? There's a newer movie about a dog that plays basketball.
Oh, right, yeah, the rules, nothing in the rules says it can't happen. I don't know the name of the movie.
That's the first movie I went to see it with my dad in the theater, Gus the Kicking Mule, and I loved it, and I instantly fell in love with movies. And then the second movie I can remember, it might not have been the second movie I saw, but the second movie I remember seeing was Star Wars. I don't know what it was called. The first cell phone I ever owned, I don't remember the name of. It was something I bought on AT&T, and it was
A
uh,
Nokia maybe, or a
no, it wasn't a Nokia. It was bigger, and it had an antenna that you would draw out. It was you know the famous picture of Michael Douglas in Wall Street with
yes,
the
yeah.
big car. It wasn't. It was like that, but shrunk down to the size of like I don't know, like a cigar. It was kind of, you know, like 6 inches tall, but it was very weird. And I forget why I even bought it. I guess, I don't even remember why. I guess I just sort of wanted a gadget, but it seemed like a waste of money. And then the phone I had before the iPhone, and then I had for most of the 2000s was just a Nokia candy bar phone. So most
Hmm,
of my pre-iPhone time was on just a $20 with contract
right.
Nokia candy bar phone, black and white. Maybe I had a color one by the end, I forget, but you know, literally just a candy bar phone. I had no interest in the quote unquote smartphones of the time. Very embarrassing, but I do. The first record I ever bought was not a record, and it wasn't a CD. It was a cassette tape. I got a Panasonic, which was you know the brand to get. I was you know some Christmas I got my sister and I both got one, which was great too, because I was desperately worried that my parents thought my sister and I could share a boombox. But they bought us each a Panasonic, those silver gray beatboxes that played cassette tapes, and I bought two cassettes. Uh, you know, I got the boombox for Christmas with no tapes, and then used my Christmas money to buy Rat Out of the Cellar. That's Rat with two T's.
Yeah, I love it.
And I wasn't even a big Rat fan. I just at the
No,
moment
listen. In
they had a
elementary school, I bought pencils with rat on them. So FYI, I was not a rat fan either, but I was aware of rat at the
be,
time.
because it was the first tape I bought. I even remember the album title, Out of the Cellar. I couldn't even tell you the name of the songs that Rat sang, but I remember it was Rat Out of the Cellar because, you know, the album title was a play on the fact that they were rats, right? And I bought the Pointer Sisters hit album, the one that had all their hit songs on it. It wasn't a greatest hits, but the Pointer Sisters
Oh yeah,
had an album with, you know, I'm so excited, and you
right.
know all the
Yeah,
other ones.
yeah.
It must have been 1984 or 1985 because it was at the peak of the Pointer Sisters fame from Beverly Hills Cop. So what a combination though. The Pointer Sisters and Rat. And those were my two tapes. And you know, they were expensive. And so I didn't have, you know, I wasn't flush with cash as an 11-year-old who could keep buying more tapes. So I was alternating between hair metal and the Pointer Sisters over and over and over and over again. When I was in college, and I said earlier, you know, from 91 to 96, and I did get my degree in computer science, but by my second year, my primary interest at college was the student newspaper, The Triangle, where I started as a columnist and then became the op-ed page editor so that I could put my column in the best spot on the op-ed page, and then decided that the whole paper really didn't look good enough and that the best way to design it was to become an expert in graphic design. And I learned Quark Express and I learned typography, and I tried to take typography courses at Drexel's art school, which is excellent, but they wouldn't let me because the prerequisites were all these freshman courses that was like drawing and stuff. And I was like, no, I just want to take the typography courses, and they wouldn't let me. And so I just read the books, but became far more interested in writing and designing the student newspaper than any of the programming stuff that I did. But graduating with a computer science degree and an interest in writing in 1996 put me in a great position to do contracting work to build websites, because building websites was far easier than actual programming. Um, and then years went by, you know, where I was doing freelance design work and web design work, and didn't really write anywhere other than Usenet. And and mailing lists for various apps that I was a fan of, and email, and still had this nagging idea in the back of my head that I would like to be a writer. And it feels like that's the one thing. You either have this thing in the back of your head that compels you to be a writer, or you don't. And most people, I guess, lucky for them, don't. But I did, but I didn't know where to do it because I had no interest in becoming any kind of like beat reporter at a real newspaper or working my way up the ladder somewhere. I've never been very good at working my way up any sort of ladder or holding a job anywhere. Uh, and and I started reading sites like Kottke and Dave Weiner's scripting.com. Andy Baio started waxy.org about a year or maybe 9 months before Daring Fireball. But at some point around 2000, 2001, I started thinking I should have one of these weblogs, as we called them back then, and thought that, and I am a terrible, terrible, crippling procrastinator. I mean, there's some alternate universe where I've still not started Daring Fireball, but have spent the last 24 years thinking I should start Daring Fireball.
Let me guess. You thought you were late.
I
You
did.
thought, yeah, no.
Well, I both thought I was late, but also I just wasn't exactly sure exactly what format what exactly should it look like? What should it even be about? I mean, there was a part of me at the time, and I still have a serious interest in like politics. Should I write about like politics like Josh Marshall does at Talking Points Memo? Uh, Should I write, I heard Conan O'Brien one time talk about like how, he went from being a writer at Saturday Night Live to being a producer and writer at The Simpsons. And then he became a talk show host with no real stage. And he said every step of the way that he made these massive career changes, he had no idea what he was doing. Just none, just dove into it. And ultimately, that's just sort of what I was like, I just have to do it. I just have to start it and just start doing it. I would say without question, it's been an unbroken streak since 1991 when I got my first Macintosh, that my favorite gadget in my life is my current Macintosh. And I actually have had, I think, very few overall, compared to how often I replace my iPhone. I don't replace my Macs as frequently because I tend to buy them fully spec'd out and then use them until they start to feel a bit slow. But at no point in my life has anything somehow created you said affection. It is and it sounds, you have to be a nerd to even think it's not funny, but to think that you can have the sort of affection for a gadget that you do for the people who you love in your life. But that is how I feel about the Macintosh.
So the answer is the Mac that you are using right now as your daily driver.
That is correct. And it's been true nonstop since 1991, because to me, it is all from that point onward, it has been a device that has given me a mild form of superpowers where I'm more capable than I would be without it. And no other device really has that effect on me, including the phone.